going straight into our next keynote. She is somebody who you may want to catch up with and, find swimming around Tech.eu because she wears many hats. One of them is also an urban gardener. So if you want a conversation started with Julia, ask her how to really make sure that strawberries are as sweet as possible. But really, the topic of her keynote is how to make your startup be noticed. We all know that's important. We all know that you have to do stuff on LinkedIn and your PR matters. But when there's so much stuff happening, how do you actually prioritize that and make sure that that communication strategy is effective? Give it to Julia Gifford, the CEO and co-founder of Truesix, head of media relations over here at Chill, and urban gardener. Very important.
Thank you everyone. Hi, thank you, Madera. Hi everyone, do you guys hear me okay? This is a very interesting situation when you're not really projecting like you would on our regular stage, but I'm glad you guys are hearing everything just fine. So thank you for the warm welcome. Indeed, my name is Julia Gifford, and today we're talking about why the world doesn't know about your startup yet, because we do agree, it is great. So a little bit about myself. My name is Julia Gifford. I am, as Madera mentioned, the CEO and co-founder of Truesix, which is a content marketing and PR agency based here in Latvia. I was on the founding team of Printful, which is Latvia's first unicorn, the English editor of Labs of Latvia, contributor at Tech.eu, and I'm a Canadian living in Latvia. And essentially what I do is I get companies noticed online. We've worked with a ton of companies, starting from startups up to governmental organizations. My lovely team's here in the front row as well. and so we do a mix of things. So a range, the first part being the content side. So that can range from blog posts and reports and landing pages and one-pagers and whatnot. But we also dive into the PR side of things, and that is essentially having articles placed in media outlets so that we're able to access a bigger international audience. And so using a combination of these two approaches, we believe that it's possible for a startup with a very, very small budget to get international scale visibility. So we're going to talk about some mistakes that we see commonly and also how to fix them. And now, mistake number one is starting local. Now, I have mentored hundreds of startups, and the most common thing I hear from them is they say, oh, we're going to start with the local Latvian market, and then we're going to expand to the Baltics, and then we see how it goes. Does this sound familiar? I've heard it so many times, and this is why this doesn't work. So you are essentially building out your company, you're building out your communications, your strategies, and you're building it for the local market. Sure, there's nothing wrong with testing it locally, but when you build it out in your local language for the local people, we here in Latvia, I know we have an international group here, but we have, we're very specific. Just because something works for a Latvian audience does not mean that it'll work for an international audience. The same goes for an Estonian one, for a Lithuanian one. And what's more is when you start developing that comms for that local audience, you're probably going to do it in your local language because that's more easy to comprehend. And so essentially, when you start talking and communicating in your own language, you're essentially building up a wall around yourself. No one from the outside, from the international market, will be able to understand what's going on. So when you do want to go international, you've already cased yourself in, and it's a hurdle to get over those walls that you've built yourself. You're essentially shooting yourself in the foot from the get-go, and you're stuck with the local market and a lifestyle brand because, let's be honest, our small markets aren't big enough for a big scalable company, and that's where it all ends. So what do you do instead? Well, build for the market that you want. So I'm not saying that everyone needs to go for an American market. I'm not saying everyone needs to go for a UK market. It might be Polish, it might be Scandinavian, it might be whatever, but build for that market that you want. And it will probably be a broader market than our local ones. And ideally, use a language that does not exclude that market that you do want. Because the only way to get a snowball moving is if that snowball is accessible to other people. So here's one case. So Draugiem LV, I think all of the Latvians will know this platform. It was super successful, a startup social media platform in Latvia. and it was ubiquitous. Everyone was on it. And I was talking to the founders, and they were telling me about how they had, once upon a time, invested millions into trying to scale this platform into other countries, other Eastern European countries. In theory, it would work, and et cetera. I went into my profile after a long time to see what it looked like. Flashback. And here's the thing, it didn't work. They had worked so hard building this product for the local market that they weren't able to get out of those walls that they had built up for themselves. On top of that, the product was so hyper locally focused that no one else really needed, the Latvian Names Day feature, all these, Latvijas features and that sort of thing. So it didn't have that same resonance with international markets. So they were stuck. But what the founders of Draugiem did differently is that they started reinvesting their profits into other companies that they immediately went with international communications. And one of those examples is Startup Vitamins, and that was one of them that started doing very well. And we essentially cut our teeth and learned international marketing based on this. And we learned all kinds of crazy things, such as, for example, doing all kinds of crazy marketing campaigns, including Valentine's Day campaigns and Mother's Day campaigns and Boxing Day and Black Friday and et cetera. And you realize and you learn how to market to that international audience. Is it easy? No. Does it take a lot of learning? Yes. But the result is that you then learn how to work with it and then have that skill to develop something like Printful, which then can become a unicorn. So mistake number 2 is neglecting the blog. So here's a little story myself. I used to have a little e-commerce store. I had one design. It's this design, which is, the Latvians will recognize it. It's a crown from a Latvian folk costume. Super niche, super local. And for summer solstice, I created a blog post. And the blog post was about what things to wear during summer solstice, because people want to adorn themselves for the celebrations. And I listed 8 ideas for what you could wear. And the number 1 idea, of course, was my T-shirt. But then there were other similar products, but not direct competitors. Skirts, shoes, underwear, head things. And so this was helpful content. And shared it. And astoundingly, there were so many shares, 16 shares, how many more? Lots of comments. And this is what it did to my traffic. So you can see the effect that one single blog post had on my little e-commerce store's traffic was. And that is to say, imagine if you wrote blog posts regularly and tried to be helpful and et cetera. That could turn into a viable business model. So here we're talking about how the blog post is not a nice-to-have thing. It can be a business, a motor that's driving you forwards. We work with a desk time blog, and here's one case with a desk time blog. We had been working with them for a while, and then you can see there's a sudden growth here. And what happened at that sudden growth? Well, we started doubling the amount of blog posts that we published. And then all of a sudden, you don't have just double the amount of traffic, you have more growth of traffic. Here we have some Printful examples of very well-performing blog posts that had hundreds of shares. And they're just helpful articles that help people understand. So for example, this article was about when Instagram stories had just appeared and no one really understood, and Facebook had this stuff, and the marketers and the small business owners, they didn't know what to do with all of these platforms. So we created a blog post helping people out. These are the differences. Should you be there? Should you be there? Listicles are also generally very helpful because they help people find answers to their big questions. We built up the blog to be the 3rd highest referring source in terms of conversions. So here the blog is a vehicle for sales. Same with the Selfie blog, helpful blog post, and with that blog post we were able to get on the first page of Google searches in a very short amount of time. So you can use your blog as a meaningful tool to move your business objectives forward. Mistake number 3 is ignoring the power of email. Now, what you should know is that nearly 60% of people say that email marketing does impact their purchasing decisions. And what's more, 49% want to receive promotional emails from their favorite brands every week. So when you think that you're spamming people, as most do, most send out, only an email when they really, really have to, or when legal says that they're updating their terms and conditions. And that's a lost opportunity, because these people have subscribed to your email newsletter list because they want to hear from you. They want to know what's new with you. And so this is a missed opportunity. So what you can do, you can start building a list now for those who haven't done that yet. There's no such thing as too early. Even if you haven't launched yet, create a landing page, get early registrations, find out first when we launch, all of that, and then all of a sudden you have a group of people, of fans that are willing and are excited to see your success. Next you can do is you can set up transactional emails with big added value. So transactional emails are when the consumer does a action, and that automatically triggers some sort of email. So signing up to a newsletter, making a purchase, whatever that might be. Send out emails when you create new content, new blog posts, new videos, new features, new initiatives. And then, of course, as many email campaigns as you can. So particularly for consumer products, but also B2B, Black Friday, spring sales, everything. So here are a few examples. Notion, for example, sends out, I kid you not, every 3 days I get an email from Notion about a new feature. And people love to use Notion and they want to find out about those features. They're helpful. Here's another one. This e-commerce store, they just want to empty their inventory. So they just did a big sale. Just come and buy our stuff, spring sale. Plukt, the tea, they had a springtime email campaign. They don't even have a discount here. They're just saying, come and choose a tea, this one or that one. And what we've seen with email marketing is that is the most consistent and most reliable way to get a spike in traffic, which also correlates to a spike in purchases. So definitely don't miss out on that email marketing. Here's a GraphoMap transactional email. When you subscribe to their newsletter, you automatically get a discount code for free shipping if you scroll to the bottom. So everyone has the automatic welcome to the email newsletter. Make use of it. Tell your story. Give them a free code. That can get that ball rolling, get them buying. Here's something we did with Printful. After all of those transactional setup emails were done, we also implemented a drip campaign of emails helping a client to go through every step of setting up their store so that we would set them up with success. Mistake number 4 is ignoring PR. So what do most startups do? Well, they ignore PR until they have really big news. And I'm talking like funding news. And then they panic that they have no media contacts, but their investors are saying, yeah, you need to announce this to international media. And so they buy services from an expensive PR agency, and that PR agency builds them these contacts. And then they forget about those contacts for 2 or 3 years until they raise their next big round, and the cycle repeats. Now, what to do instead? I would recommend creating a list of a few big startup media that you are interested in. And then I would also create a list of a few major news outlets that cover your niche. Say if you're in the drone space, there are plenty of drone news outlets that are interested just in that. I would then choose a few journalists who write about your topic, and those will be your journalists. You bring them into your fold, and these are the ones that you will be buddies with as your startup grows. Reach out and say, hi, I don't have any news yet, but I want it to be on your radar, and when we do have news, you will be the first one to hear because I like what you write. And then keep them updated, and that's as simple as that. Because who doesn't want one of these banners in their on their website? It creates trust, etc. And of course, there's a lot of credibility that comes with it. And of course, it also gets your name in front of more eyeballs when you do have that news. So here's a story about how I did that when I had 0 contacts. So this was back when Printful hadn't been launched yet. And I knew that when we will launch Printful, it will be big news. So I need, at that time, the coolest, most important startup news outlet was TechCrunch. All right, I need to get in TechCrunch. No startup, Latvian startup, had ever been featured in TechCrunch before. Challenge accepted. So what I did was I went to TechCrunch and I took a look at which journalist writes about this region of the world. There was only one, his name's Steve O'Here. He's not with TechCrunch anymore, unfortunately, but you can replicate this approach. And then I Googled his name. Turns out he has a website and with a section called How to Pitch Me. You read that, and then you follow their instructions. So a lot of journalists will also have their contact information on their Twitter accounts or whatnot, or maybe they've gone to a podcast and talked about how they would like to be pitched. So definitely take a look and see if there's information on how they like to receive input. So then what I did was I started just reaching out and letting him know about news in the Baltics. Not necessarily news from my companies, but just kind of like, I know you're interested in the Baltics and you're not here. I'm going to keep you updated about our process and what's going on and what's cool. So I sent him a list of stuff that was relevant. And just the last line were companies in the Draugiem group, which is where I was working at the time. And interestingly, he responded, oh, this is great, really useful. I've just been reading about your company. It looks like no one has covered Istabai, which I'd love to find out more on. Maybe introduce me to the founders. So great, I introduced them, and a few months later, there was an article that included Istabai. So with this, what I was trying to do is making sure that when Steve sees my name in his inbox, he opens it, because he knows that I am, first and foremost, helpful. So when I did have news, then this is what I sent Steve. Heads up, we're launching Printful. And this was the letter that I sent to him. And I told him, I want you to be the first to know. That's important, exclusivity, because big news, you choose your most important journalist and you tell them that they are the only ones that have the story. They will be the first to tell the world, because that is important for journalists and for media outlets, and it's their business. Okay, this is my mistake. I said the launch is scheduled for tomorrow. You should give journalists more time. Give them, 2 weeks. And then, gave them some reasons Printful will be big, a little bit of press that we had gained for Startup Vitamins, which was kind of the precursor to that, and let me know if you'd be interested. And indeed, a few days later, we had the Printful launch article in TechCrunch, and from what I understand, this article is used as the date when Printful celebrates its birthday to this day. So you are in luck, because here at TechChill, we have more than 60 journalists in attendance, accredited here. Look out for the pink badges. Talk to them, say hi, ask them what they write about. And I'm sure that inevitably they will ask you, and what do you do? And then you can tell them about your startup. And then the last mistake that we'll cover today is ignoring personal social media. And what most do is they feel too busy for social. They're building a company and there's so much to do. Or they're not ready and they're scared. And they have great news, but they don't share it because they don't really do the active LinkedIn thing, which is a shame. Because they miss out on a lot of opportunities. Often it's the founder's voice that is the most influential on social media accounts. So there are ways to get around this, even if you don't really feel comfortable about it. I do recommend that you do give it a try. So here are some ideas. Share your progress. The building in public is more of the extreme version. But you can say, hey, today we worked on this, this, and this, or today was a milestone, we landed our first corporate client, et cetera, et cetera. Share your growth. Tag people when you've collaborated with them, because those people will want to share. And share your content, and share your blog posts and articles and interviews, because that is all stuff that populates the world. And the reason this is actually such an underrated opportunity is because there's over 500 million LinkedIn users, but only 3 million share content weekly, which then gets 9 billion impressions. So unlike other social platforms, where you put in your news and then it disappears instantly, it has a longer life cycle on LinkedIn, which makes it more valuable and more worth your time. So here's one case. So for example, we arranged an article for Dav, CEO of Printful, at the time, and he tagged us in sharing, and then like for weeks, we still kept on getting notifications on LinkedIn about someone who has liked the article. And so it's one way, so this is one way that Davis is staying in our subconscious because we're seeing this article being pinged all the time. So he's kind of staying relevant in our kind of awareness. Another founder, Martin Schlesmans, co-founder of Supplyful, he does a monthly, like very transparent building in public. This is how revenue's going, etc. And so people are able to learn from him. If investors see, potential investors see their progress and how they're doing and their milestones and their growth, which might otherwise just be a total mystery. But here he's able to share. Artis Rosenthal, CEO of Desktime, sharing articles that have been successful about his company and in the internet. And then here's one case from myself. So I thought, LinkedIn can be funny. So here's an initiative I was very proud of. And I collaborated with a lot of people, tagged them all. I thought, OK, this LinkedIn post is going to go so well. And it got about 2,000 impressions. But then this post, which was essentially me saying, yeah, I was really burnt out this summer, and this is what I'm feeling like after a 4-week vacation, like a lot better is the key takeaway. And this got twice as many more impressions. So the lesson here was that the personal story and the vulnerability also does wonders for LinkedIn engagement. And there you have it. Those are our 5 mistakes. I actually don't know if we have time for questions or if there's... All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your attention.
Thank you. This was awesome. I'm taking so many mental notes for all, for all small shop at bad ideas, especially like the last one on socials. Like that cuts in deeply. Yeah.